Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending where you are, and welcome. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today for what promises to be an informative and educational webinar around unified business analytics and why this is a core need for businesses today. We have with us today two esteemed industry experts. Firstly, we have Chandana Gopal, and Chandana is Research Director at IDC Business Analytics Solutions Market Research and Advisory Practice. And secondly, we have Chandrasekhar LSP, who goes by LSP, and he is an evangelist covering this area at Zoho. Both will give you some great insights as they guide you through this topic today. We'll close with some time for questions, and we encourage you to use the Q&A box to enter these at any time during the webinar. But please be sure to mark whether you would like Chandana or LSP to answer your question, and we'll address as many as we possibly can at the end of the webinar. If we do run out of time and don't get to your question, don't worry, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the webinar. So firstly, let me introduce Chandana. Chandana's core research coverage includes demand and supply trends in business intelligence, advanced and predictive analytics, and an enterprise performance management market. Based on her background in integration and analytics, Chandana's research includes a particular emphasis on how analytics is being embedded into software applications, how artificial intelligence is being embedded into business analytics software, and how end-user requirements are driving technology design. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to Chandana to get us started.
Thanks, Julie. Let me just take a minute to start sharing. And yes, again, good morning and good afternoon, and I'm super excited to be speaking with all of you today about a topic that's very close to my heart on why business analytics is a core need for every business today. And my presentation is going to take you through the trends that I'm seeing as a research analyst in this space, what I can give as, identifying some issues that you might be facing within your own businesses as you traverse this whole unknown space of analytics, information, the artificial intelligence and everything that's being thrown at us today. And finally, some recommendations on what you can do in your business to make it ready for taking it to the next step. Without further ado, let me get started with a framework that we have developed here at IDC, and we call this the Digital Transformation Framework. And the reason we developed this is that we were seeing that more and more business today is being digitized. In fact, we forecast that by 2021, 50% of the global GDP will be digitized, and data will be the new capital, just like money is. Winning organizations are going to be differentiated by how they're able to leverage data and analytics and unlock insights within their organization. They are going to be empowering decision-making at all levels of their organization, regardless of industry, size, and where they may be located. So if you look at this framework, what I want to bring to your attention is that almost all organizations, again, regardless of size and industry, location, etc., have certain assets, have invested in certain assets. Some of them will be systems of record. Those could be ERP applications, CRM applications. They could be in the IoT business, so they have devices. Internet of Things has resulted in a whole bunch of data being generated at the edge. You have connected processes, you have people in distributed locations, and as well as you have an external facing business. So you may have your partners, suppliers, and an entire ecosystem, and everything is generating data. In fact, according to research that the IDC Global DataSphere Group did, humans are today generating about 33 zettabytes of data, and that's projected to increase to 103 zettabytes of data by 2023. So let me give you, let's take a pause to think about the amount of data that human beings are generating in all their activities that they're doing today. But the unfortunate thing is that just 2.5%, just less than 3% of that data is being analyzed. And the reason for that is that it's often locked up in these siloed applications, siloed systems, on people's desktops, on workstations, or even just in people's heads. And that's never been, and you've never been able to get access to that data in any kind of a programmatic manner. So what we are hoping to see come up more and more is that analytics becomes this gel that kind of connects all these different pieces of data generating applications, people, and processes, and becomes the intelligent core of your organization. So as you look at this framework, I want you to think about all the data that's flowing through your enterprise, coming through the central analytics, being able to be analyzed in this intelligent core. And the intelligent core doesn't mean a piece of technology. What it means is that you're able to make your entire enterprise intelligent in that you are able to harness all the data that's flowing through your organization and generate those insights, generate those actionable insights that can then be acted upon. So the analytics becomes fundamental to the way your enterprise makes those decisions, regardless of what level those decisions are being made at. It could be at the executive level, it could be at an operational level, or it could be a very tactical day-to-day type decision that needs to be made at the at a very low level within your organization. So the core takeaway is that to be successful in the near future and the long-term future, you really need to be operating on this premise that data and analytics is core to your business. So another change that has driven the growth, this digital transformation within the IT industry and in general across all industries, is the growth in the cloud and in cloud-based applications. So IDC runs a survey, a very big survey every year. We call it the FastPath survey, to understand the way that cloud applications are being used within organizations. And we look at all different applications, regardless of business function. So if you look at ERP, Salesforce management, if you look at supply chain, if you look at finance, procurement, whatever, in all those areas, we are seeing an increasing use of cloud-based applications, the SaaS applications being deployed within these organizations. And we're also seeing, so this is not a trend that's specific to large enterprises either. We're seeing small and medium businesses that are actively exploring new ways to deploy technology. And our research shows that over 75% of small businesses and 90% of medium businesses said that cloud or hosted solutions are a significant alternative to on-premises resources. We're also finding that even if organizations are using on-premises applications, they are actively considering the use of cloud in the near future. So the end result is that enterprise assets are widely distributed. So you're always going to have some assets that are going to be on premises. It's too expensive or too difficult to move those to the cloud. And you're adding on these new cloud assets, these cloud applications that now have to be glued together. So you have to have some way of being able to harness all these systems of record or systems of insight that are sitting in these different places and use modern technology that are API enabled to be able to access the data and then generate those insights that we talked about in the previous slide. So another trend that we are seeing is the importance of analytics and artificial intelligence. And we are all hearing that. In fact, some of the more mind-blowing, the opinions I get as a research analyst is that if someone puts in AI in their, in their venture capital deck, they automatically get a 30% increase in investment. That's how, that's how widespread this, this buzzwordy technology has become within the industry. So we try to understand how important are analytics and AI to the end customers. And when we asked the question, we found out that users are very interested in understanding the impact that analytics and artificial intelligence is within their day-to-day life. So embedded artificial intelligence and action-oriented analytics. And 68%, almost 70% of respondents said that they would prefer to have applications augmented with intelligence. Again, this trend is not restricted to large enterprises. Even into the small and medium business segment, we found that there is an active, there's almost 70% of companies in the 500 to 1,000 employee range plan to use or already invest in analytics actively within their organization. So if you are in a company that's still on the fence and trying to figure out, should I be considering analytics? Is this going to be important to me? Remember that many of your competitors, almost 3/4 of your competitors are already moving along this path of having some form of intelligence or an analytics built into their applications. So that's something you should be considering as well. So now that I've established that it's very important to have analytics, let's take a little bit of a backward step and think about, how have enterprises implemented or invested in analytics for the last, several years. And this is, BI, data warehouses, analytics. These are not new concepts. They've been around for decades. And usually what's happened is that an enterprise decides, the management or IT leadership or what have you, they decide that, hey, we need to invest in this technology that's going to make us, that much more profitable, that much more innovative, that much more, competitive, et cetera, et cetera. And they go out and buy a technology or buy, or build a data warehouse or invest in building an enterprise performance management tool or predictive analytics. So they just invest in the tool without necessarily thinking of what impact it has. What impact it'll have on the larger group of business users within their organization. So what happens is that these technologies, they are very expensive. They take a lot of time and effort and resources to implement, but they are usually available to a very small group of users within the organization. And for the larger pool, for the larger population within a company, what happens is that they often have to wait in line. They have to, set up a request or, go through procurement or have, they have this long process by which they have to then request access to some of these tools. And that becomes too onerous. That becomes too difficult for the average knowledge worker. And what do? They get a snapshot of data from whatever application they may have access to and start running reports in Excel or spreadsheets or whatever their desktop application they may have. So as a result, you have all these silos. You might have invested a lot of money in building these assets, but at the end, the end result is that they're still not being used or democratized within your entire organization. So I'd like to call it, that the way I look at it is, these are all solutions that go looking for a problem. You may have a very active group within your organization that has the BI capability that goes to the business units and says, how can I help you? But that's still very much the exception rather than the rule. And most often, the biggest frustration that I come across when I talk to the end users, the line of business users, is that we don't have control. We can't get access to our data or our analytics, so I just give up. I either give up or I start, have a shadow application that IT doesn't know about, and it's just frustration, and it's certainly not going to help you innovate at scale. So we have to start thinking a little bit differently about how we invest in these kind of technologies and how we can truly empower our users. Because if we invest in these kind of silos, this is the result we see. We see that, across the different levels of decision making, be it executives, be it managers, or the frontline staff within our organizations, you have more than 50% of the organizations saying that analytics doesn't really influence or affect their decision making. So when we ran the survey and we asked, do you really feel that you make those decisions based in, grounded in data, being empowered by being able to say that, I know why I'm making this decision? More than 50% of the respondents said, no, we don't, because we just don't have access, or we don't have the analytics available to us at our fingertips. And as an end result, I don't have that confidence in the decisions that I'm making. I might be making them on intuition, on past history, and oftentimes I don't have visibility into the impact of those decisions. So it becomes a becomes a guessing game, which is not good, certainly not good for businesses. And this is across all levels of the organization. So what do we need to have within our companies in order to get better, in order to be able to make those data-driven decisions? First of all, we need to get a better understanding as to what do we mean by democratization, right? I mean, that is a terminology that we're hearing more and more, but often it means different things to different people. In some companies, when we present this idea of data democratization, people say that's just restricted to the people that have access to those analytics assets. It's not everybody within the organization. It's relegated to a very small sliver of the user population. And so, you know, you have different concepts in people's minds as to what they actually think about. So we came up with a definition as to what does it mean when you want to have a data literate or or an organization that is empowered by data, by analytics, by insights across the different levels of their organization. So let me just go through those, you know, the four different, the four parts of what we think of as democratization. The first is to be able to read data involving understanding of what the data is and what aspect of the world it represents. The second is you want to be able to work with data. So it doesn't involve just getting a data download from something and then saying, you know, that's all I have access to. But you are able to find those different assets that are, the assets that are within the organization and say, okay, if I'm in sales, I might be able to, I can definitely benefit from getting access to data that's within the marketing application and use that as well and see how well I'm doing with respect to the marketing campaigns that are happening. So being able to work with different types of data. Analyzing data, so involving filtering, sorting, aggregating. So it's making everybody within the organization more familiar and more comfortable with the idea that they can use data effectively. Because quite frankly, oftentimes this is very intimidating to the average user because in their mind, data and analytics equals math and statistics. And that is something that is, you know, for the larger population, is something that they feel like they don't have that level of comfort with. So just making more and more people within the organization realize they should be actively asking for this ability to analyze data, get the result of analytics served up to them, and then make their decisions based on based on those analytics is very important. It's not just taking what you're given; it's going out actively researching, being able to find like, what if I do this, and what if I change some parameters? Does that impact my business? Being able to make all those kind of what if analyses possible to everybody within the organization is part of the democratization. And finally, being able to argue with data. I love the idea that you're not just, finding an answer, you're questioning your answers as well. So when you have when the system and the application might surface an insight to you, you have enough confidence to be able to say, okay, does this make sense? Am I understanding what this answer is giving me? As organizations, as some of these applications become more and more sophisticated and might have more and more artificial intelligence embedded into them, it's making people understand that, okay, this is what is coming up to you. Do you agree with it? Does it make sense? Can you proceed with the action based on this with any confidence? So being able to argue with data. So as you go back to your companies, I'd encourage you to think about how you can actively encourage everyone within your organization to have that mindset of being able to question, of being able to analyze, of being able to story tell based on what they're seeing, and not just work off of a PDF report or an email report. That's fine. I mean, business has been done like that for many, many years. But if you really want to be successful into the next 5 years, you really need to say, okay, I'm hiring with this mindset. I'm hiring with the idea that I want people that really are comfortable working with data. In that case, if I'm giving them access, if I'm giving them the analytics, they can, the sky is the limit. They can really make wonders in the business outcomes that they're able to empower. I'm not saying this is easy either, because the more and more we peel back the onion and trying to understand, how organizations have been able to do this, I understand that it's hard because it's not easy to find data scientists. It's not easy to find business analysts that have a very strong data mindset. And in fact, surveys are showing that as well. With even when the data literacy index has a metric, and they found that only 24% of senior decision makers actually pass the test for data literacy. And these are senior decision makers. These are not frontline employees. These are not lower level, people that might be doing day-to-day accounting or basic tasks. These are serious. These are the strategic managers within the organization. And sometimes, and oftentimes we find that less than, a quarter of them said they were really comfortable with using data as well. So this needs to be, if you're in a position where you can empower your own organization and you're that senior business manager position, please go back to your organizations and say, I really need to make sure that everybody within my organization has access to the training, has access to the to whatever resources they need in order to be comfortable with working with data. Because we find that less than 35% of organizations actually offer data literacy training, and which, considering the amount of resources out there, you have Coursera, you have Udacity, you have so many courses that are available for free or available online, that you just empower your employees to go out and seek some of those resources so they can become more analytics savvy as well. And then work with whatever resources you have within your organization that can empower, that can create the connectivity, so then they can, your users can find the data to analyze, they can build their assets and so on. Because we find that if any organization that's about 1,000 employees, they waste about $5.7 million every year searching for and not finding information. So we actively went and surveyed. It's like, how long do you spend in trying to find the information that you're looking for? And oftentimes, they waste a good 40% of their workday just doing that. So we really need to be able to say, okay, what can we do to make this better? We have to invest in modern assets, in applications that understand this and can surface up the data that the end user might need, or provide recommendations. We all are familiar with the way Amazon provides recommendations. You looked at this, maybe you're interested in this as well. So maybe that's the same mindset we have to bring into our applications as well. You look for this data, maybe this data is useful for you as well, or these assets are important for you as well. So whatever that you can do to make that job of the end user a little bit easier is going to help them become more data savvy. So to cap off this part of the presentation, let me just identify again, just pull together all the issues that we are finding within our user group. So number one is that analytics is usually disconnected from the users. You have one group of users that's tracking, that's collecting the data. You might have a data science or a business intelligence group that's analyzing the data. They give the reports to the end users or the line of business people to say, this is the data we analyzed, here you go. Make your decisions based on those, these reports that we've given you. And finally, there's some action hopefully coming out of that entire process. So we're finding that the first issue is that it's a very disconnected process, with the actual users not having access to be able to do their own analysis. Issue number two, and this goes back to the chart that I had on, how much confidence do you have in that your decisions are made based on data, and we find that there is a disconnect. Oftentimes, organizations think that it's only the executive level, their senior level management, that really needs access to analytics, and everybody else is just doing day-to-day jobs. It's not that important for them. But it's actually quite untrue, because the more access to analytics you have at the lower level, it just rolls up and bubbles up to the top. And the day-to-day issues, the day-to-day innovations are often coming at that tactical level, where those tactical decisions are being made. For example, if you're in retail, it's understanding, what do I stock? What should I order more of? How do I manage my inventory levels? It's put someone in that level that's making the decisions. That might be then rolled up to a store level. That might be then rolled up to a larger region. So being able to say that you have to account for the diversity in decisions and decision makers within your organization. Number three is identifying just saying that we are not happy with just giving reports to people that have to make those decisions. You want to be able to allow everyone to have awareness as to their situation, evaluate alternatives. And these are obviously not all of this is going to be something that you can do right away. But understanding, what of these can I consider? For example, if you look at the last but one bullet in this page, the capturing institutional knowledge. Are the decisions that are being made in your organization based on what some one person knows in their head? It's not necessarily, captured or programmatically within any application. So if that person leaves or retires, is all that knowledge going to go out with them? So being able to capture that kind of institutional knowledge within applications, within your tools is important. Understanding risks and constraints, being able to do some predictions within your own application is important as well. So now that we've identified some of these issues, and we have to deal with all this fear, uncertainty, doubt that people are telling us that AI is going to take over the world and, we're all going to be replaced by robots. And on the other hand, AI is the way we're all going to be saved. It's getting, that's really the way medical technology can advance and so on and so forth. With all this confusion and all this, the uncertainty that we have, what is the solution? What can you and I do on a day-to-day level? So I'd like you to think about this very old proverb. If the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad must go to the mountain. And what do I mean by this is that start thinking about bringing analytics to everyone within the organization at the point of consumption. And by that I mean that if you are an accounts receivable analyst and you're using whatever you might be using for AR, provide analytics within that application. Don't make it necessary for them to take a data dump out of that and go to a different tool to do analysis. If an analytics is available to them within their point of consumption, they become empowered. So think about all those applications that you might be running within their organization and see which ones are low-hanging fruit, which ones can be enabled using analytics, using APIs that can connect to analytics. Or if you're looking to invest in an application or a tool or a suite, think about those tools that are already giving you those capabilities. So a tool that might already have analytics embedded into it is definitely a better way to go than something that you might have to build analytics in later on or in the long term. And I just blew out the analytics process as well. So you might have the ability within the application, so within the line of business application, to do the detection, the description of the data, some of the diagnosis, predictions, prescriptions. These are, some of these are very advanced. You may not have the application may not have the ability to do a prescriptive, recommendation as to what you have to do. But even if you can get some of these components of the analytics lifecycle into the hands of your line of business users, you make them that much more powerful because they really know their business. They know how to do AR or AP or, sales or marketing. They really know their line of business. So if you have an application that empowers them, they can really shine in their own work. They don't have to rely on IT to provide any reports or run a SQL script or do any fancy programming to get those analytics to them. The next one is, obviously, since we have invested in these applications that are very line of business focused, often they are siloed. So think about breaking down these silos. If you think about all these different line of business functions within your organizations as honeycombs, as separate combs as separate cells in a honeycomb, connect them together and say, can we then use the analytics as a metadata layer, like a layer that is able to connect all these different dots. It becomes the connective tissue. It becomes the arrows that show data and analytics and insights running through the organization. So that becomes a truly dynamic situation where your business knows exactly in real time what the state is across all these different units and is able to make much more strategic decisions. And finally, if the applications are infused with analytics, the entire business becomes more intelligent. And so you have that learning, adapting, and the explaining. That's the cognitive life cycle being embedded within the organization. If you just go down to your line of business analyst and say, I want you to use cognitive technology, they're going to say, what? I don't know what that means. But if you say that here's your application that's already got these abilities built into it, you can use that to make your decisions. They'll know what to do with that. So think about it in bringing it to the application, to bringing it to the user, as opposed to making it a destination where analytics is, a separate business unit or a center of excellence by itself. So, I've come to more or less the end of my presentation. And if you have, if you're still on the fence trying to think of, should I do this now? Should I invest in something new? Should I be considering an application that's giving me all this analysis? The time to act is now, because we find that more and more companies are falling behind by waiting too long, by not giving in to this idea that they have to invest in the intelligent core by making their whole business more intelligent today, and waiting too long and saying, okay, let's just see what happens. We've run our business successfully for 20 years the way we've had. Why should we make a change now? Why should we invest in something cloud-based? Why should we take the plunge? I'd encourage you to think about the alternative. The alternative being that digital entrants, they may hold just 17% of the global revenue, they hold 77, almost 50% of the digital revenue. And this is a quote from McKinsey Consulting as well. So really think about acting right now as opposed to putting it off, because you will find that over the next 3 to 5 years, the amount of data, the amount of, the changes that are coming at you will be too hard to do if you don't have the right tools to help you along that journey. So with that said, it brings me to the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, like Julie mentioned, certainly put them into the Q&A and we'll address them after. But right now, I'd like to turn it over to LSP for his part of the presentation.
Thank you, Chandana. There's some fantastic insights and research for us all to think about. So now let's move on to LSP. As an evangelist, LSP focuses on creating awareness for Zoho, and he's been associated with them for over 18 years. And in the past 9 years, LSP has worked at CTO offices architecting business intelligence solutions. So with that, please take it away, LSP.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Chandana, for the great insights that you provided and, setting the stage for me to come and talk about how, the Zoho's offerings can actually help people with their BI initiatives. Julie, at this point, I'm unable to, okay. Sharing my screen. So Chandana, once again, thank you for that excellent presentation on the struggles of businesses and enterprise as they go through this process of getting BI into getting their BI act together. So I would like to begin with a quick introduction of who Zoho is. Zoho is a 23-year-old company, and we have been offering cloud-based services for sales, marketing, HR, and finance application. And with over 45 million user base spread across 180 countries, we have excellent diversity of people who are using the products, and the company is essentially private and bootstrapped. We also have two other divisions, the Managed Engine division and the Web and MS division, that focuses on the enterprise IT and IoT segment. The focus of this presentation is going to be around Zoho Analytics, which is the BI platform that Zoho has. And I'd like to begin with a brief history of how did this whole initiative begun. This actually began way back in 2007 when we put out the first beta of the Zoho Analytics platform on the cloud from the word go. And cut to chase, we now have over 1 million users on the platform. And as recently as in 2018, we also came up with an on-prem edition of the software because there were certain industries in the legal and the healthcare industry that wanted a BI platform that they could host on-prem in their own data centers because of regulations and legislation requirements. So what is Zoho Analytics? Zoho Analytics is essentially a self-service BI platform. It helps you to acquire data from different data sources that you would have. It helps you to create various data models for the data that you have acquired, and also helps you with the visual analysis. Now, as a part of the core part of the offering is in this whole, from an acquisition standpoint, we have hundreds of different connectors to different kinds of business applications, be they CRM or marketing automation tools or project management tools or customer support tools and whatnot. But what is unique about Zoho is it just does not acquire data from the third-party data sources or business applications. It also helps you with the data modeling. Now, from a modeling standpoint, it helps you with AI-assisted data modeling that is built into the platform, or if you have a homegrown expertise of business analysts and a data scientist, it also allows them to create models within the system. The next step in any self-service BI platform is once you have the models in place is to analyze them visually. And there again, Zoho has, the Zoho Analytics platform gives you the ability to create those canned reports and dashboards for various domains. And over and above that, if you have specific KPIs that you want to build, it will allow you to do so. So again, there is an AI-assisted visual discovery that happens, and then there is also this whole notion of users who can create their own reports and dashboards. So let's look at the various things that Chandana spoke about. Chandana spoke about having different, departmental level analytics, which helps over time for you to, pull through to the next level of the organization. Let's look at departmental analytics. A platform like Zoho Analytics has pre-built connectors to various domains such as help desk applications, be they sales applications, finance applications, social media, and whatnot. Now, an interesting aspect of this particular integration points that we have is, as I alluded to earlier, it not only acquires data, it also creates the domain models. When it creates the domain models, there are pre-built reports and dashboards that help you to get a acceleration as far as your BI adoption is concerned within an organization. So you don't have to really figure out or have a data scientist or a business analyst who has to sit and work with everything. We have done the hard work. We have analyzed the model. And again, it goes back to our expertise in different offerings that we have, be it sales applications, marketing applications, and finance applications. We have a role. We have, as Zoho, we have products out there that operate in each of these spaces. We have understood the models. As far as the BI platform is concerned, we have leveraged that exposure that we have had and created the domain models and the reports and dashboards for people to get, quickly started with the BI initiatives. So this is a typical departmental dashboard where you see the sales information from a CRM system. It tells you what the revenue looks like, what is the expected revenue based on the analysis of the data that is within the CRM. You also see an interesting forecast report that shows out here. So this is interesting, right? So if you want to kind of get to some line of business analysis, if you want to kind of get to some decision points within your line of business, Zoho allows you to do that. We have these departmental level analytics that are pre-built that helps you to get started quickly and move on. But really, the holy grail is essentially about bringing everything together, right? So how about unified business analytics? Goes back to a point that Chandana said in her presentation, as much as we can, it will be fascinating to bring data from all different silos, break down the silos, and look at enterprise analytics from a wider perspective. Think, for instance, a marketing campaign that you run on, let's say, Google Ads, right? And all these Google Ads campaign would essentially result in some kind of a lead being generated within your CRM system. Now, once the lead comes into your CRM system, you would nurture them. You would then convert those leads into deals. And once the deal happens, you start having transactions from a financial standpoint with those organizations, sending them invoices out and trying to do business with them on a daily basis. So if you look at a typical organization that's doing this kind of lead generation and lead conversion and doing business, it will be interesting to kind of look at, hey, what is the return on investment I have on various campaigns that I'm running on Google? Is it which of these campaigns that I'm running gives me the best bang for the buck, and so on and so forth. Now, as you can see, as illustrated in this diagram, there are different things. There is the Google AdWords analysis. There is the analysis from a CRM perspective. Then you're looking at back office operation systems such as a finance application. And you now have to bring together the data from all these different domains and stitch them together and create end-to-end analysis. Now, that is again something that is unique about Zoho, because while we have created those domain models, we also automatically are able to understand the connection points between different domain models. And if you want to do an end-to-end analysis across your business, it allows you to do that. Again, what I would like to highlight here is there is this AI-assisted domain modeling that stitches the domain end-to-end. And also, if you want to extend this beyond what the AI can do, what Zoho can do by default, you can have your own set of experts who can work and create different models for creating specific KPIs that are unique for your business needs. So let's look at what exactly goes on in a typical scenario like this, right? If you want to do an end-to-end analysis, here is a typical dashboard. This is actually a live dashboard that I have imported, where I'm actually getting data that I've acquired data from a Google Ads database, from a CRM system, and a bookkeeping system. And if you can look at it, it tells you things like what's the ROI from a investment perspective, what is the average lead acquisition cost, right? And then there's also this average deal acquisition cost. It becomes interesting when you start slicing and dicing these numbers in this aspect, simply because, yeah, you may get 1 million leads, but then how many of those leads are actually being converted into deals which are paying the bills for your business, right? If you want to start looking at those kind of details, it is necessary for you to bring data from different domains, as I said, and that's where, again, Zoho plays a very important role, helping you create those models automatically, and also augment those models with in-house expertise that you may have. So here is a set of other reports that you can see out here, where it tells you what's the ROI for the Google Ads campaign that's been going on in your business. For example, there's a sample gallery ads campaign. There is a free tutorial campaign. They're bringing in close to $75,000 on a monthly basis, whereas if you're looking at something like the blog or competitor target-based articles that you have put out there, it's only generating about $3,000 to $8,000 on a monthly basis. So you quickly know, either from these kind of analysis, what is it that you want to shoot down, or what is it that you want to work on? Probably you want to work on better blog quality, better blog content perhaps. So you may want to target the blogs and kind of increase the revenue trend out there. Or you may just say, hey, you know what, the blogs are not really working for me. I just want to pull the plug on it. Now, also look at the kind of analysis and pre-built dashboards that we have. It also tells you the ROI by location basis. So there's a ROI on the global basis, and then if you want to kind of drill down and look at all these ROIs from a region basis, Zoho is able to do that simply because you have the information about all these leads, what these territories are, where these leads are being, converted into deals and whatnot. All this information is processed, and it allows you to come up with these kind of, analysis. Now, one of the most important things, probably the most daunting task for any organization, is clearly about how do you make this data democratization a reality? A lot of people talk about it. We had Chandana speak to it specifically, and it is a big barrier because even though you have, in the last 15, 20 years, the dial has moved from IT-centric BI to putting the power in the hands of, line of business users and business analysts, it is still not that prevalent. There is still this inherent idea that BI, as, Chandana rightly said, is associated with maths and stats, and people literally get, frozen by the idea of doing analytics. But then that's where, a lot of companies, including Zoho, are trying to move that pointer in the direction of using AI as a means to break down the barriers. And, we talked about all these nice things about acquiring data. Yeah, you have data in your Amazon databases, your Google databases. You're bringing the data. You have your data in the form of Excel files and feeds. You have data in third-party applications, maybe a Salesforce, maybe a HubSpot. It's great that you can create these departmental models. It's great that you can stitch the multidisciplinary or multi-departmental data models together and create a unified data model. But if nobody is going to consume it, or if people have, develop a cold feed to try to access the data, then there is no point in doing any of these things. And that's where what's happening with vendors like Zoho and just about everybody else in the market is they're trying to change that conversation, wherein instead of having a user to be familiar with the drag and drop interfaces, right, you can basically give them a search-like interface. In this case, we call this Ask Zia. Zia stands for Zoho's Intelligent Assistant. So the domain models are created. You come in here and say, show me the total sales, right? It comes up with this number right out of the bat, right? Now, I want to kind of extend this conversation to the next level, where it also tells me from where this data has actually been, sourced. Because if I'm bringing in data, let's say from a CRM system, there are tons of modules out there. Like there's the deals module, there's a potential module, there's an invoice module. So as you start interacting with the data, the system is smart enough to tell you, hey, by the way, this is a number that I'm giving you. This is a particular stat that I can help you with. And by the way, I'm getting this stat from this particular module from where, from within the CRM system, or it could be the bookkeeping system or anything of that sort. So let's kind of watch this particular video. It becomes some, very interesting. So you then say, hey, show me the total sales by month. It tells you just about all the data set that it has. It brings up with this interesting graph. It shows you this as a line chart. But hey, I'm a user. I'm more comfortable with bar charts. So I say, show it to me as a bar chart. It changes that visualization immediately. Now, let's also add the next level of filters, right? I don't want everything, but I want to do it for the last 3 months, 6 months, and in this case, for the last year. It gives you the trend for sales for the total sales on a monthly basis for 2018. Even more interesting, you want to kind of slice and dice this data and look at it from a regional perspective. It gives you that information. And this is not just about sales and revenue. It also tells you, kind of helps you identify the top performers within your organization. So let's say I'm in the sales department. I want to find my top 5 sales rep. That's something I can do. Top 10, salesperson by revenue. It immediately pulls that information, gives you information on what's happening, helps you keep a tab on people, right? And gives you some insights that are interesting along the way. Now, let's for a minute pause with this particular question that we have asked Zia. What is the one amount versus ticket count by account name? At this point, what you're looking at is you're looking at the deals that you have won in your CRM system and comparing it against the tickets that you have received from all these, deals that you have won in your help desk system. So again, it kind of gives you very interesting insights where you basically are now looking at cross-domain model that is available in the system and you are interacting with it. And you talk to it as though you're talking to a human and saying, show me all these stats, give me information based on natural language. So what we have done here with AskZia is we have gone to the point of saying, take it to the next level, take the conversation, break down the barriers of adoption of AI. Break down the barriers for adoption for BI and AI within your organization. And, to summarize, what's happening here essentially is you have a multi-domain model of which the data is being generated. You can save this report or dashboard and move from there. A couple of interesting things that also is possible is, when you have these departmental analytics, there was a point that Chandana made about making these reports or charts or this analysis available at point of consumption. So let's say, you have these reports and dashboards that you've created in a Zoho Analytics platform. You want to make it available at a third party. Let's say you're a Salesforce organization. You want this particular dashboard for sales that I showed you earlier in your Salesforce application. You can easily embed those reports and dashboards into third-party applications. Thereby, while you will have a practice for business intelligence and analytics within your organization, you can make these statistics and these charts and reports available at various points of consumption within the organization. So to summarize, we looked at departmental analytics and how Zoho not only acquires data, it also helps you to model and visualize the data, and then how you can bring data from different domain models and stitch them together to create unified data analytics. And we also saw how Zoho is using natural language processing or AI in the form of AskZia to break down the barriers of adoption for BI within your enterprise. With that, that's all the time I have, but we're definitely open for questions. Look forward to see the questions that you have. Over to Julie.
Yep, thanks both to Chandana and LSP for those great insights, and hope they've helped you understand the power of unified business analytics and why it's so important for any business today. So now we're going to get on to your questions. The first couple of questions we have are for Chandana. So the first question we have is from Earl Rodolfo, and Earl is asking Chandana, is the legal industry taking a keen interest in analytics and BI?
Thanks, Julie. Among the industry detail that we collect, we find that financial services, the services industry in general, oil and gas are typically the leaders in investing in a lot of these new technologies that are related to analytics. Legal is not quite up there with the leaders, but that's not to say that we're not seeing innovation. But I think legal and government tend to be slower or more conservative in their adoption, just given the nature of their business. But we are seeing a slow progress towards adopting cloud technologies, towards adopting analytics and BI technologies. I hope that answers your question. Julie, back to you.
Thanks for that, Chandana. And just a second question, again to you. What do you think will be the impact of AI in business analytics?
So if you think about, so let me call it business intelligence, because I think business analytics tends to be very, very broad. So if you think about business intelligence, BI tools, like LSP mentioned as well, what's happening is that a lot of the vendors are starting to embed AI into the BI tools in a way that makes the usage or the user experience a lot easier, and a lot more intuitive. So for example, if I talk about the visualization piece of BI, where you're generating the charts and the graphs and the pretty pictures that the end user might want to see. So the embedded AI within the application or the tool can recommend the right kind of chart or the right kind of visualization for the type of data that you have, depending on whether you have a lot of data that's ordinal or cardinal, whatever the data set you might have. The application or the tool has the intelligence built into it that says, for this kind of data, this is the type of visualization, kind of cutting back on that time where the analyst has to, go back and forth between all the different chart options that you have available. The same if you're thinking about the algorithms that you might want to use. If you're looking at, a BI tool that has the most predictive capabilities built into it, again, based on the data or based on the question that you're asking, the AI allows you will surface up the right kind of algorithm, be it random forest or, these more advanced mathematical calculations. The application is able to tell you, even if you're not a statistics guru, you can say, okay, I know that I need to use a regression model, or I need to use, a different kind of predictive model because of the data that I'm looking at. And finally, one of the ways that we are seeing AI impact business analytics or business intelligence specifically is the ability to interact naturally with the tool. So think of it much more like a Google-like experience where you're asking a question and it comes back with the answer. So you're able to use natural language and saying, what was my, what is my sales forecast, or what is my, the expense forecast, whatever application you might be using, you can ask a question in natural language in a way that doesn't require you to build a query or, use SQL or use any kind of programming to be able to ask those questions. So those are just some of the high-level areas that we're seeing artificial intelligence impact the way users interact with BI tools.
Hi, now we have questions for LSP. So the first one, LSP, is there a narrative reporting aspect that can be derived from BI reporting?
Great question, Earl, and Julie, thank you for the question. The answer to this question is yes. We are working on what's called a natural language generation, wherein we're taking the conversation from not just using NLP for generating these reports and dashboards, but also taking it to the next level in terms of verbalizing what insights can be drawn or what inferences can be drawn from these reports and dashboards that are generated. So that way, again, using AI, we are getting to the next level. That's going to be the next frontier within the roadmap for Zoho ZIA in the context of Zoho Analytics to help people with understanding what's happening with regards to the insights that are being given out to them. Over to you, Julie.
And just a further question, does Zoho Analytics, sorry, this is to LSP again, does Zoho Analytics have the ready data model built in related to the transport and logistics industry?
Not at this time, but what can be done is if the users of if people have the expertise, it definitely allows you to create that domain model. So like I said, it's a very extensible platform. We are working with a whole host of different domains at this point: sales, marketing, finance, HR, social media analytics, and whatnot. If there are experts who want to kind of create those models into Zoho Analytics, the answer is 100% yes. We don't have anything right off the bat. We don't have anything templated or cookie cut at this point for the logistics and travel logistics industry specifically, but the platform is extremely capable and flexible for people to create their own models.
Again, LSP, and one further question here for you. Does Zia have a separate database or warehousing, customizable analytics, or does it connect to a database or data warehouse?
So the Zia does not have a separate database. Zia plugs into the same database as Zoho Analytics at this point, and that's the way it's modeled in the context of a BI and visualization standpoint. And we are working on a data warehousing or a data prep service as well, which will be debuted in the next couple of months, which will have a notion of Zia within the context of data preparation, which can work with any data source, and that can essentially become the data management or the data cataloging system based off of which Zoho Analytics can do the analysis.
Thanks again, Alice. And just keeping you busy here, we have another question for you. Are there any plug-in predictable models built into Zoho Analytics? We do have a predictable model that's being built in. So we use machine learning ourselves for forecasting, and predictive analytics is something that we are trying to get to. So we are in the process of building those capabilities, as far as our ML, machine learning, and AI initiatives are concerned within Zoho Analytics. And these, again, the way it will come out is that it's going to be self-service, meaning we will understand the data, we will predict the models, we will not necessarily allow at this stage, given that it's still nascent, for third party to come and plug in their own machine learning algorithms and predictive algorithms into the system, or predictable models, I would say. Thanks again, LSP. And question for you, very popular. Is the BI solution using data in memory, or does it send queries to the database?
What's the question again?
The solution
okay.
Data in memory, or does it send to the database?
It's a combination. So given the way the entire system is architected, there are two parts to it. Based on the data consumption, there is some amount of data that's held in memory, and then there is some amount of data that is going to be held in the database as well. So it's a combination. It's just no one-way street there. It's depending on how users are accessing the data, what are the most frequently asked questions to the system. Based on all those metrics, we decide. So the architecture kind of makes a decision in terms of where the data is going to be hosted, where the data is going to be pulled for a specific report, and make a certain insight available.
Okay. So we are just about out of time. So just to say that if we didn't get to your question, we will come back to you and respond outside of this webinar. We'll also share the recording of the webinar with you within a day or two. So at that, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and I hope you found it really useful. It was a great session. So have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.